course. We are at Scanfil Malmo, one of 9 factories. Scanfil is a contract manufacturer, otherwise referred to as EMS, Electronic Manufacturing Service. We do products with electronics. Could be products like advanced communication devices, could be more professional gadgets and other type of communication modules. Everything we produce contains some form of electronics, and we are essentially a mounting and assembly company. So we don't produce per se. That would like a mechanical company who might produce out of metal and plastic finished product, typically like Nolato, a strong partner of ours. But we buy components and we assemble them in our factories. Traditionally, companies did everything in-house. They had their own R&D, they developed everything, designed everything, and prepared all the documentation for production, and eventually even made the product in-house. The general trend for the last 20 years, and specifically the last 10 years, is that you work in collaboration with other partners, R&D companies. But that's not enough. So you need to involve companies like Scanfil, like Nolato, and others who have a competence within components and production and testing and logistics. And the best way to do this at a very early stage, involve all these parties together with the customer. And at this stage you can kind of set up what does the customer really want, and how much that affect the price in terms of production cost, because the customer's aim is always to get the best product out as soon as possible to the market at the best price. On the other hand, you have a lot of variables affecting this. Although an R&D company can come up with the perfect components for doing a certain task, it's not worth much if I can't get it in time. So typically today we have a very long lead times, could be up to half a year or even more, which means that even though you develop something, you still have a timeline from when that product needs to hit the market. And if that's too long, you need to adjust and maybe find a component that is available, but perhaps not the best price. In other circumstances, could be the opposite, that you have another component that has a much lower price and actually does the job decently anyway. Then it's up to the customer to accept that maybe I didn't get the best product, but on the other hand, nobody will notice, so we can still use this component. So that's one way of having an input on components and lead time, and where's the threshold for the component. Certain components go down in price, which is always very attractive, at very high volumes. Other components are more available in lower quantities, which is important before launch, before you know the final volume. So if you have a kind of a mid-volume product, you need to focus on certain components. If you have a really high volume, you need to focus on other type of components. And this is where R&D companies like Sigma, they focus on the functionality, and we focus on the other things that influence availability and accessibility of the product. We have, as everybody probably noticed, a big trend in startups. We have young people that have really great ideas. The main problem is that they really don't know who to turn to, what does it cost, how much time does it take, is there any other things I need to think about, certifications and legal aspects. And we would very much like to help them. So we have a special, in our factories in Malmo in Germany, we have kind of entry factories where we assist companies that are not as savvy in development of product. And we try to guide them, tell them how much will this particular assembly cost and how long time do you need. And we do this at a very early stage so they can then polish their business plans and present them to investors and make themselves more attractive, more professional. But typically the trend in connectivity is that today even traditional companies having ventilation system, filtering system that have not been used to having any kind of electronics. Now they realize that with connectivity they can monitor at the point of where it's most critical and give feedback. This has opened up for actually totally new business models for these companies, where the demand for service or some other kind of feature they invent creates new opportunities, and via connectivity they have full control over the whole system. Typically it's the ventilation companies that has discovered that I can have a sensor. You have light in offices where you want to check if is there a person or not. Why having it lit if there is not a person? Or is the person sleeping, etc. So you have a lot of different areas where connectivity has suddenly opened up a total new market. If we sit down with our customers and the customer explain what they want to achieve, if you bring all the partners like Sigma, Nolato, Scanfil and Vemic, we can together highlight different cost aspects, different time aspects that are vital, because it doesn't cost too much to change during a sitting meeting where we haven't decided anything. But you already have the input from all the experts, and that way you can kind of set the specification much tighter. And then when Nolato goes around, because Nolato is typically the partner in charge of the overall development, they have a much clearer picture of what they want to do, and basically we all save time. In the end, the customer save times and costs out of that exercise. It could be simple that Vemac is helping us doing fixtures that it will improve efficiency in production, to us telling about certain components that are easily available, or Nolato telling about that at a certain level or volume level you need a certain type of tool that reduces cost. Or we can discuss quality issues that might improve with certain adjustments. So all of this is very important to get them from the start, and then you have a much clearer picture on the journey ahead. The other reason we have 9 factories is that our factories in Germany, in Sweden, are what we call close to R&D. So we have a lot of these startups, we have a lot of international companies, and they want to work closely together with their EMS and their R&D partner to save time. So it's very difficult to develop something in Sweden and then producing it in the US. We have time zones and traveling, etc. So you want to have all the parties involved at the early stage very close, so we can work fastly, we can quickly communicate and change. And then once your volume is kind of set, you typically have a low volume when you start, which means that you might produce it locally. And then when volumes go up, you need to lower the production cost, and then you can move it either to China or to our Polish sites, which have a reduced cost. And then, of course, not to forget logistics. Again, coming back to your market. If you're selling it in Asia, you should produce it in Asia, because the shipping is still an important thing. You don't want to have your product on a boat for 6 to 8 weeks or even 10 weeks. And shipping it by air is fast, but on the other hand costly, which is another thing to consider in this total cost aspect. If you have a heavy product and you have to ship it a long way, suddenly your shipping cost is a big part of your total cost. We welcome startups, old school, traditional companies, and anyone with existing business that suddenly need electronics. And we will help you and guide you through this maze, I could almost say, and get an optimized product all the way to the market.